to welcome you all. We'll just be getting started very shortly, but in the meantime, if you haven't already, we'd love for you to introduce yourself in the chat, where you're from, one thing you'd like to learn today. That would be great. So we'll get started soon. Okay, let's get started. Again, if you haven't already, introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to see where you're coming from. And also please share with us one thing that you'd like to learn today. I wanted to let you all know that a recording of this webinar will also be sent out to all attendees and registrants after and posted on our social channels. I want to welcome everyone to the American College of Traditional Chinese Medicine's webinar, Cultivate Calm with Chinese Medicine. Let's see if we could get the slides up. Perfect. Next slide. I just wanted to first introduce myself to everyone. I'm Dr. Rachele Lam. I am a graduate from ACTCM's doctoral program and also a licensed acupuncturist at Anchor Acupuncture and Wellness in San Francisco. I am very excited to be putting this together with our guest speaker today, Dr. Lana Farson. With everything that's been going on in the world and the increased amount of time that we spend at home, self-care is more important now than ever. And so we wanted to share a bit about traditional Chinese medicine and how you can use it to guide some practices at home to deal with stress and anxiety. Before we got started, though, I also wanted to start off with something a little bit interactive so that we could get a sense. I'm going to put up a poll for everyone to share a little bit about their background. If they have any training or they're coming completely new to Chinese medicine, we'd love to hear from you all. So just take the next 10 seconds to submit your answers. And you can select multiple if multiple apply to you. Let's just get the remaining last votes in and we'll close the poll now. So great. It's awesome. There seems to be a big mix of backgrounds. So thank you all for sharing your responses. It's always great to see who's in here with us today. Hopefully, no matter what your background is, you'll be able to walk away from the webinar with some practical tips for cultivating calm. Also, I wanted to let you all know that during the live presentation, we will be taking questions, and you can submit questions in the Q&A section of Zoom in the bottom. There's a little option there, and we'll just be monitoring that throughout the presentation, and we'll also have some time at the end of the presentation to ask questions. Next slide. One last thing also before we get into the meat of the presentation, I wanted to talk a little bit about our school. Founded in 1980, ACTCM is one of the oldest Chinese medicine schools in the US, and we offer both a master's and doctoral degree in acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. We also have many public programs like this one, and continuing education courses through our sister school, CIS, which is the California Institute of Integral Studies. If anyone is interested in learning more about Chinese medicine or what it's like to be a student at ACTCM, maybe make a career change, I welcome you to reach out to me or someone from our admissions team. Previously, I was working in tech before becoming an acupuncturist, and I really found ACTCM to be a very nurturing and explorative place for me, with many like-minded, holistic focused people. So it has been a really great experience for me. Next slide. But without further delay, I would love to introduce our guest speaker today. Her name is Dr. Lana Farson. She is on the ACTCM faculty and director of Well Balance Center in Lafayette. She is also an alum of ACTCM, and she completed both her master's and doctorate degree here. She's worked at Kaiser, Highland Hospital, and she's also very passionate about herbal medicine and even has her own herb garden at home. Some of you may know that ACTCM also has our very own herb garden, and turns out back in the 90s when she was a student, she was one of the early organizers of setting up the garden. So in addition to teaching at the school, she also teaches a series of workshops on herbal healing and medicine making. And I will let Lana take it from here.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Hi, everyone. I just checked out the chat and I can see lots of you from all different places and really great background. You want to go ahead and advance the slides and we'll get into some of our topics today. So basically, we're going to talk about ways to bring calm into our life. We're going to talk about how Chinese medicine helps with that and how we view calming and how we view stress, and just go over a little bit of the medicine, because as we talk about this one topic of stress or calming, really, I want to teach you a little bit about how Chinese medicine sees balance and imbalance. So whatever the issue is, if it's anxiety or insomnia, anything digestive, any disorders at all, or any symptoms at all, we have a lens for looking at it and bringing the body back into a state of homeostasis and balance. And this leads to our best health. Why don't we go ahead with the slides? I'll just keep asking Jamie here to help us out. And let's see, so what is stress? I'm pretty sure we all know what that is in a sense, because we've all had some form of it, right? But basically, it challenges our body to respond and to have quick responses and to adapt. And that, stress actually can be positive. There can be like what we call a eustress, which pushes us to grow in many ways, either with our mind or also spiritually. And then when it gets to be too much, it becomes a negative form of stress. And in our medicine, we take a look at that. And one thing with all the symptoms is that how we experience that symptom really depends on where our body's balance is or was in the first place. So for example, if we have just had, coming off of an illness and we're just sort of recovering, we call that being in a state of deficiency. If a new situation comes on, like a common cold or stress, we're going to have the layers, like an onion, of layers of stuff that we're dealing with. And so that's talking about, deficiency cases and then having a new issue come on. And I'll get into the definition of that in just a sec. Otherwise, the other way it can work is that, maybe we have underlying conditions that could be, food stagnation or digestive excesses. And when we get a new situation on top of it, such as our topic today, stress, then that's going to layer things in a little bit different way in terms of the onion, the layers of the onion. So why don't we take a look at that next slide? And we've got yin and we've got yang. So the black and white circle with, it looks almost like a fish swimming. One side is darker and one side is lighter. So the darker side is the yang side. I'm sorry, the yin side, and the lighter side is the yang side. And then in each side, you see there's a little bit of the other. There's a little bit of yang in the yin and yin in the yang. And so what this symbol really just means is balance, that we have, all different things coming together in a way where they're harmoniously represented. And we see the same thing going on here. This is a big part of our medicine to talk about the 5 elements, and they interplay with each other, either in a supportive, generative way with these arrows going around the outside. And then we also see them interplay in the center with arrows where they sort of control each other. Those of you who've studied Ayurvedic might compare it to the Ayurvedic system, which is 4 elements, including air. So it's kind of similar along the lines. And the goal of both of these is just to maintain balance, homeostasis. And these we just consider to be diagnostic aids. Yin and yang, or 5 elements, it's just a way to bring balance and peace and calm to the body so that the person can radiate with their best health. Okay, next slide. So getting onto our topic of stress and how to bring calm and how to relieve it means we talk a little bit about the causes. And so on this slide, I'm just trying to show the causes of stress, but it really could be looking at the causes of any imbalance, any symptom. So it could be the causes of insomnia, for example. So I divided it with Rachel's help. Dr. Rachel helped me work on this. So excess cases, deficiency cases, and then mixed picture cases. And so what that means is that when we talk about an excess situation, we're talking about something being stuck. So every disorder or every symptom could have an excess component where it's just not flowing, it's tense, it's stuck. And in terms of stress, what that would look like is either what we call chi stagnation, which is our lightest level of disease. Chi is the first thing affected. And that could be like tight emotions or tight belly or tight muscles. And then if it gets more serious, all the diseases, when they get more serious and move from a simply chi level, for example, they could go into the blood level. And this is a little bit more involved because it's involving the physical tissue and not just our the lighter aspects of chi. It involves our physical form. And in the case of stress, it could also lead to physically seeing that the body is creating stagnation, such as with PMS or menstrual pain, that kind of thing. So that's the first thing, is excess. And then remember, with every disorder or symptom that you'd like to treat, in yourself or others, you're also going to look at another aspect, which is there any deficiency in the body? And so when we say that, we're talking about all of our reserves, all of our resources in our body. And in Chinese medicine, we call those the qi, the yin, the blood, and the yang, right? So that's what sustains life. And if you decide to go further into the program and become a student, you're going to go into great detail on all of these and learn how to deal with each symptom, every symptom, and bring the body back to balance. But it certainly depends on these resources in our body. So ideally, we want strong qi, strong yin fluids, strong blood, and strong yang warmth. When we are low on any one of these, we can start to get symptoms, and these symptoms will help us figure out, oh, okay, is the stress actually related to one of these deficiencies? So for example, if a person who's got anxiety, waking up at 2 a.m., feeling stressed out, also is really dry mouth, dry eyes, dry nails, dry tongue, dry skin, then you can see it would match a little bit here to the yin deficiency, because yin for us is moisture. Or maybe they're also cold, right? So then you can see it might line up with yang deficiency. And when we put all these together, we put 2 and 2 together, we start to create a pattern. Then we have a really good high chance of rectifying the situation and bringing that symptom back into balance, along with other symptoms too. Generally, when we give treatments, people usually state that other things they hadn't even complained about have gotten better. And the reason is that it's all interconnected. It's all considered to be a pattern, right? So in our medicine, we don't just treat a symptom, like a single symptom, like stress, for example, is a single symptom. We're looking for, well, in this person, that stress, what else is it linked up with? What other symptoms do they have, so I can treat it correctly? And that means we could have 10 people come in our office, each complaining of stress, and each of the 10 people might get a different treatment, right? And I know Dr. Rachel has seen that as well. So finally, in the slide that she's prepared here is we see a mixed presentation. So this is probably possibly one of the most common situations, is that we see both excess and deficiency at the same time. But as you go through your studies and years in it, you get really good at it and it makes sense and it's easy. In the beginning, it can be a little confusing because, with a sort of a beginner eye, it's like everything kind of looks the same in a way. But, one of the beauties of Chinese medicine as a system is that it's so ever careful and detailed and attentive to each little tiny thing, So for example, as practitioners, when we get a phone call from a client, we're really attentive to, what does the voice sound like on the phone? Did they sound angry, or were they kind of whining a little bit, or was it a little bit more breathy or kind of gurgly, like deep, sort of like a drum resonant? So all of these are clues. We're already starting to figure out, maybe there's a little bit of a metal element thing there, right? And then by the time people are coming into our office, even when we see them, we're looking for clues. We're looking for color variations, around the eyes. This is a really great place to look and diagnose what color is around the eyes, what color is around the mouth. And each of the, do you mind going back a slide, Lisa, just to get to the yin and yang and yep. So here with the 5 elements, it's a pretty cool aspect to the medicine. So when you learn 5 elements, you start to learn all the correspondences that they have. So for example, I like how this is because it's color coded and the colors correspond to the medicine. So for example, if you're seeing somebody who looks pretty yellow in their skin tone around their eyes and mouth, that might point to an earth element imbalance, which turns out to be spleen and stomach. Or let's say they're more white at that area, or kind of a darker gray. or even greenish, sometimes you'll see, or red can come up in the face. That starts to point you to their constitutional, innate, inborn tendency. And then that's one of those layers I was talking about of the onion that we always want to pay attention to. So more on that in one of our classes, which will be, Rachel, where do we have a class like that? Can you let me know? Is it intro to Chinese medicine, where we get the basics?
We have a course called Foundations, and that's
That's
where a lot of that is covered.
Yeah, Foundations of Chinese Medicine is the basics, and a really great course to just get down all the important nuances in the beginning that you can layer your work upon. Okay, so let's advance, I think, 2 slides now forward. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so here's some of the aspects of healing with traditional Chinese medicine. So I know that all of you are really interested in healing, and probably you're all healers yourself in various ways. And so in our field, in our medicine, we have different specialties. So for example, on the top left part here, we've got herbal medicine. So we've got over 340 herbs that are regularly used in our apothecary, in our pharmacopoeia. And, you know, some of them are really common, and you might know some of them, right? You know things like mint and orange peel, and some of the cooking spices like nutmeg and cardamom. These are all part of the medicines, right? And then some of them are strictly really more on the medicinal grade. And, you know, there's just so many beautiful ways that we can use those herbs. So you can take them by mouth. They can be medicines in that way, and like pills or powders or tinctures or capsules. And then we have a bunch of amazing things we can do that are super fun to do on the skin externally, or breathing steams. And so we've got classes that go into all of that. And then I think what we'll do is we'll talk about that more in detail right now. And then after that, the plan is we're going to talk also about acupuncture and body work, which is on the top right. And then we'll talk about lifestyle, which is the bottom right. And then we'll also talk about a specific aspect of lifestyle, which is the diet. And so healing foods and all of that, if we match it up with the yin and yang, if we match it up with the 5 elements and people's chief complaint, then we can get a lot of healing. Yeah. So unless you want to add anything, Dr. Rachel, we'll go on to the next slide, which is here. Yep. One more. Thank you. Yeah. So here's an example of, so this is one of my cooking pots I use in my kitchen, and I make herbal broths, or you could make a chicken broth, right? And so, you know, typically a person, when they're making a broth, they start with water and maybe some bay leaves, right? And I like to start adding some of my medicines. So we've got goji berries here, which it's red, and that tonifies the blood. A lot of red things do. You see another red one over here. This jujube tonifies the blood. We've got 3 types of mushrooms, and the white one tonifies the lungs, which relates back to our 5 elements, the metal element being for the lungs. We've got shiitake mushroom, or a dried similar shiitake, and also a black wood ear for the kidney, because black is for the kidney. And then this happens to be lotus seeds and also some seaweed. So those are things that I'll go ahead and cook up. Actually, I just did one last night, and it's just a great way to do food as medicine. Here on the top right, this is the type of scale I use at my office. I was trained on a traditional Chinese scale, but of course we also use Western digital scales. And this is a formula called Guizhitang. It's the cinnamon and peony formula, which is, it's useful for loads and loads of syndromes, but basically it strengthens immunity and warms people up with cinnamon, strengthens the heart. It's really for cinnamon type people. So there are people actually that really resonate and respond to cinnamon. And we have a whole host of cinnamon formulas that would address their constitution. So I'll just go in a circle. Am I talking too fast, Rachel? Let me know. Okay, I don't think I am, but so down in the bottom right, this is just from one of our workshops of medicine making. So mortar and pestle, we also use modern day grinders. We do infusions in water, glycerin, alcohol, oil, you name it. We've got all kinds of things that we make, and it's super fun. I bet a lot of you do that. I'd be interested in the chat. If any of you make anything cool, you could write it in there and I'll read that. Or we could do a poll. Okay, so the bottom left is just showing you like powders, capsules, pills, tinctures, like you name it, we can make it. And, you know, I treat lots of little kids, babies, all the way up to geriatrics. And I always find something that the person can resonate with. Yeah, so this is all a little look into herbal medicine, and then we can go up one more slide. Lisa, thank you. Okay, so specifically back to our topic, herbs for stress. Rachel and I thought a lot about this, how to sort of present, you know, in an easy, simple way, something that you could take home and from this webinar and use easily. And these three, I think, are kind of universal for most people, can tolerate them really well, and they're gentle. So the first one you totally know, right? It's roses. So there's many, many different species, and we're using Rosa rugosa. And in Chinese, we call it, this means beautiful rose flower, Mei Gui Hua. So that's an aspect of the medicine, by the way, is all the herbs are done in, are talked about in Mandarin. So if you've ever taken a Mandarin or Chinese class, it's going to come in super useful. And if you haven't, and you're serious about the program and want to do it, I think it would be great for you to do something online, just get a little bit of Mandarin, you know, on your phone, some kind of an app where you can, you know, get the tones and get familiar, because you'll find it really useful. It's a very fun language. Okay, so back to roses. So Mei Gui Hua, remember how I talked about excess presentation, like everything's stuck, either the qi level, which is light and airy, or the blood level, which is our physical tissue. So that's exactly what roses do. It just moves things along. And so if we're feeling like all, you know, tight and bunched up and irritated about something and just upset, I think that's a great time for roses. And there's a couple of brands I really like that have a rose tea in tea bag form. Or if you have roses on your property, you can certainly harvest them before the rains and dry them and use that, as long as they're not sprayed or, you know, close to the street where there would be car exhaust. Let's see, roses could also be done in many different forms of food. So you can buy, what's that one we had a picture of, Rachel, which was the rose water, right? You can get that at a lot of the, a lot of different shops have that, and you can just use a teeny bit in the drinks that you make, or if you're making any kind of dessert, you just use like a half teaspoon of rose water in there. Also, I do roses also like in my oatmeal, but I don't use this part on the picture that is green is the bottom calyx, which is hard. I don't use that. I only use the petals. You could do them in your bath. You could do a rose essential oil on your body as a fragrance, and then that's going to be very good for stress, you know, kind of like as a form of fragrance therapy. So I think that's all I want to say about roses. I'm going to skip to the middle one. Feel free to chime in, Rachel, if I forget something. So the middle one is a type of what we call it a red date, but I just want to highlight right away, it's not the medjool date. It's not the date you buy at the grocery store that's super, super sweet. Oh, Lisa asked a question. Yep, it's jujube, exactly. So it's called, if you can write that to the whole group, that would be nice, because it could say jujube on here. We call it red dates, but it's a jujube date. Recently, we've been seeing them in our area at, you know, some of the outdoor markets. And we call it da zao, which means big date, or hong zao means a red date. So this is good for a deficiency presentation. It's got a lot of iron, which you can see right here in the color of it. And it's very good for people who have low hemoglobin, low hematocrit, like they're possibly anemic, or they're just deficient in general, and especially with their blood and their qi is a little bit weak or deficient. And so the first function, it says here, it tonifies the spleen and stomach qi. So that means the energy or the qi associated with the earth element, which is the Remember, it's the yellow colored element. It's for spleen and stomach. And generally people could be like a little bit fatigued easily, or have digestive issues if that's the case. Secondly, all the red color, you can see it nourishes the blood. It doesn't move it like rose. Rose moves it and gets it, and it's sort of like makes it exercise or something. Whereas red dates nourish it and make more of it and make it more mineralized. And when we do that, the heart becomes happy, you see? And when the heart is happy, the spirit is calmed. So this medicine is really mind, body, spirit medicine. And we're using the body, the physical tissue, like the spleen, to create a healthy environment for the mind and also for the spirit, you see? And then thirdly, we've got our third category here. We're talking about reishi mushroom, which we call lingzhi, which is a type of spiritual name. And this is really great for a mixed presentation of stress. So we've got two functions as well. It tonifies and calms the spirit, but it also can nourish the blood. And actually, I think it's a third one here that's just basically it's good for a detox. So mushrooms in general, food mushrooms, this is also a food mushroom. Mushrooms help our body detox. And sometimes that's a way that we can treat that excess stagnation because we move things along, right? So hope that makes sense. It's a little bit about how our medicine works in terms of herbal medicine. And now we can go on to the next slide and talk about some of the other aspects of the medicine. Okay, so here, oh yeah, so one of the attendees is talking about jujube coming in their CSA box. That's great. So they got it in their part of their kitchen delivery, and yep, that's what it is. You know, you can eat those jujubes just like an apple. Actually, you can just chew into them. They're a little more mealy than an apple, but it's super medicinal. So really great to do. And then I like to cook with them in my oatmeal or broths or in my Chinese herbs. So we're interested in you know, organic. That's what we're interested in. And we've got so many different contacts throughout the United States and in other countries where we have access to very high quality herbs, no pesticides, you know, no heavy metals, locally grown. That's why I got interested in the gardens and growing my own Chinese herbs so that I could guarantee the quality. Just let me know, Rachel, if my internet becomes unstable. I think I got a little message, but I think it's good so far, right? Yeah. So let's see. Now we're going to talk about acupuncture and body work. And there's a lot of different aspects to acupuncture. So we're up here in the top right-hand corner. And so acupuncture, of course, involves these thin little tiny needles, which are almost more like a pin. They're not hollow. They're actually solid, and they're very, very thin. They're almost just like, you know, like a hair on your head or something. They're very, very thin. And most people feel that it's super comfortable and it just feels like a little bit of a mosquito bite, you know. So it's something that, you know, is really, brings a great feeling for people, adults, as well as kids. And gotcha. So gua sha, I want to show you a couple of my gua sha tools. Cupping, I'll show you what those look like. And then, you know, there's also different types of massage. Here we've written down about Tui Na massage. And of course there's moxibustion. You see, there's so many different things. I'm not sure we have time to talk about everything, but these are the modalities: 7-star hammers, plum blossom hammers and needles. We do a little bit of light electrostim, like a TENS unit. And can you go ahead and advance the slide? Let's see what we've got there. Yeah, I'm trying to catch up on the reading there, but it's okay. So here's, for example, so we've got acupuncture needles here in her hands and on her wrist. And this is a treatment here for the head and the belly. We're treating her belly and we're treating her and headaches. And that's because the channels that go to the head and go to the belly also traverse here at her hands and wrists. On the top right, I wanted to show you this. It's called a moxibustion stick. And we have an herb in there called Artemisia. And it's a very special herb that has a special essential oil. And when that's wafted near the body can pick it up, and it's for pain. We use that to get rid of arthritis. Here we have a demo on the bottom left, which is cupping. And this is for muscle strain and pain. And you probably all saw, what was it, that famous swimmer who had cupping marks every time he, I can't remember the name, but if somebody writes it in the chat, that would be nice. So a lot of the athletes have been using cupping for a while, and that's part of, that's originated in traditional Chinese medicine. Oh, Michael Phelps, that's right. Thank you everybody. And then the last one here is this is a gua sha tool, and I'm doing a particular type of massage on her with the tool, and that's to help her lungs get rid of phlegm and stagnation. So it's a great method. Okay, so next slide would be great. So we'll just quickly show you, there's a point here between the eyebrows, which is calming. That would be lovely to press it. You could do that right now with me if you want, just with your thumb. You just take it right up there, and I'm just kind of almost like rolling it from my nose bridge up my, yep, that, just like that. And that's a way to calm down. So, or you can even do it in a downward fashion like this, maybe with your thumb. And either way, I usually do it this way. It's also calming. And then we have a foot point that's calming. Let's see the next slide. We just wanted to point out a couple of, oh yeah, ear shen men is really great. There's a point here that we use. We stimulate that with some of our various tools. And then the very top of the head, it's hard to tell in the photo, but this is the top of the head right here. There's a point called Do 20, and this is also very calming to the shen. So like, for example, if somebody had insomnia, I would think doing yin tong, which is here, and then the one at the top of the head could be very calming, and try to bring that back down, maybe with a little bit of the rose tea before bed, and possibly some jujubes as well. Okay, so we're getting a fuller picture. Let's go on to the next slide. And I'm going to talk to you. Oh, you know what? This would, before we do lifestyle, and I see that Chris has a question about gua sha. Let's go ahead and let me show you these tools that I have. If you want to put that away real quick, I wanted to show you some of the tools that I have. And so these are some of the Thai herbal tools filled with herbs. I've got lavender in here. We steam them like you're steaming spinach or something. We steam these, and then when they're nice and hot, we can do a little massage on the shoulders with that. And then I've got a couple of tools that I wanted to show you. Here's the fish that you saw earlier. I also use crystals in my practice, and this one has I use the points for people who don't want needles. I do crystal therapy on their points. My favorite tools are the ones that are made of copper, because copper conducts energy, just like copper's all in our walls, right, for our electricity. So I also collect various copper coins because I like to do massage techniques. I'm going to show you one of them. So I think I'll show you, here's another interesting shape. I'm going to show you with my fish. This is my, let me see if I can do this. I'll just put this up a little bit and show you. I'm going to give myself a little treatment on my arm. And this is what I do for kids a lot, and also for people who want better immunity, and for people who are don't want to get sick. So I'm using the lung channel here, which is, if you take your thumb like that, you can easily find your own lung channel. And then I'm going to first take just the edging. You know, you could even do this technique with your fingernails, or even with a shell. A lot of times I give little kids shells in my office so that they can massage their lung channel. And I'm just turning it, and I'm trying to pink it up. It's getting a little pink. But when I don't have my tools and I'm at home with my kids or something, I just start scratching at their lung channel right there. And that stimulates the lungs to have better circulation. And the tool's designed so that I can use the tail of the fish right there or along the spine. It's got these little, so it's a great gua sha tool. And we teach that at our, at our school. So I'm going to go through a little bit more and then we will move into some of the questions. I'm going to just show you the cups is what I wanted to do. These are just what the live cups look like, the Michael Phelps cups, you see, and we have a way to make a suction, and then those need to go on an area of the body that has, you know, enough muscle to do that. So usually we put them on the back. Okay, so let's have the presentation back. We'll just do a little bit more of it, and then we can start taking your questions. Rachel's going to compile those. Great, thank you. So I wanted to speak about lifestyle. So there's a lot that we could say about lifestyle, and that we will learn about lifestyle as we go through the program. But basically the beginning piece of it is that we want to create consciousness, and whether that's through meditation, which we may have time to talk about today, or just consciousness in our daily lives as we go along with our feelings and emotions. So that becomes a way that we can learn, we can heal emotions. You know, emotions are definitely on our list in terms of balance and healing. And, you know, in a sense, we could say that consciousness is the only true form of healing, or at least that consciousness really boosts our ability to heal. So we promote that in the program. And, you know, that means, it means different things to different people, but it's about a certain type of personal integrity and willingness to keep our eyes open and see the truth, feel the truth, face the truth, speak the truth, and find ways to make sense of the truth, and also empowering ourselves so we feel safe about that, right? And then the topic of lifestyle has a lot of different aspects to it, including exercise. You know, we particularly promote two exercises called Qigong and Tai Chi. So Qi means energy, and Gong means work. So Qigong just means energy work. And so we practice working with energy in our own hands and our own movements. That along with Tai Chi, it's sort of like a dance. It's like a dance that we do with Qi. So we're able to move the Qi with our hands around our body and also in our body with Qigong. So those are things that it's part of the program. And also I'm sure you can find in your area classes where you could take that as well. I'd be interested in the chat of any of you telling if you're already doing Tai Chi and Qigong. Those are practices that cultivate energy, and they are very good because they nourish us and make more and give back and strengthen. There's a lot of other exercises that are fabulous, like yoga, and yoga is about stretching and moving. And so there's a little bit more of some styles of yoga are a little bit more movement based and moving stagnation, right, for excesses. And then what else have we got on here? Yeah, awareness around sleep habits, rooting ourselves. There's a lot to talk about here. I think what we'll do is we'll go on to the next slide and talk a little bit about diet, because diet is on people's lists. In the chat, I saw people talking about it. And it's one of the first things we can do to get healthy is to make sure our diet is in a line with the 5 elements and with the elements within us. For example, if you are, or if we are phlegmy, if we have mucus and phlegm, postnasal drip, this is a sign of dampness. So we need to be careful not to promote it by eating damp, encouraging foods such as sugar or cow products, things that create mucus, right? Wheat. And so that's why when people go off of gluten or wheat and dairy, they experience some healing results. And it has to do with that piece in this example of dampness. So the diet should match the constitution and the syndromes. Oh, good. People are writing in about the Qigong and Tai Chi. Let's do another slide down to see if we have a little more. Oh, yeah. So this is an example of a major cause or a component in stress. And I haven't talked about the specifics yet, but it's just a little jump we'll do. And I'm going to let you know, it's called liver qi stagnation. And that doesn't necessarily mean your real liver, but it definitely means your liver channel, which is on the leg, right? We saw a liver 3 point earlier on the foot. And so if there's stagnation of energy, the qi in the liver channel, then we can get, that really has a huge impact on stress, because the liver is in charge of flow, right? So a good flowing liver would be sort of like a person dancing into the room and saying, hey, everybody, you know, how's it all going? And sort of sharing love and being very open and connecting. And when we have liver qi stagnation, we're much more like angry and irritable, and we kind of stomp into the room and, you know, so this is what I'm talking about. And then here we've listed some foods. So these are examples of food as medicine, about how it could be herbs or acupuncture, but it also could certainly be getting the foods aligned with what can help the underlying cause of the problem. So for example, rosemary, orange peel, these kind of things. Yeah. So let's see what our next slide is. Questions. Oh, so we made it in time, I think. Okay. So yeah, whatever kind of questions you've got, why don't we
Thank
have
you,
Rachel?
Dr. Lana, for sharing so much. I think it's really, I think one of the main takeaways from this presentation really is how personalized the medicine is. And even with something as broad as stress, you know, everyone experiences it. They may experience it in their own way, and finding solutions using Chinese medicine is very personalized to their presentation. So I hope each of you learned a little bit. Maybe we're able to identify with an excess case or a deficiency case, and kind of have some tips for how to best treat your own presentation. I'm looking through the questions a bit, and one of the ones that a few people have been asking is just where might be a good place to get herbs, how to like start thinking about maybe even growing them, or can you speak a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. That's a great question. So yeah, I can give you some names of places where I get my herbs, but I do want to give a little caution, which is that, and because this also happened to me when I was a student of this medicine in the early 90s. I thought it was just herbs, like, oh, it's just herbs, no big deal. And so it was probably about 1989 or 1990 that I went to Chinatown and I bought a bunch of ginseng. And I thought, well, I heard of ginseng, I want to try it. Maybe that's going to be good for me. Like, it just seemed, I don't know, I read something about it, and I just thought I didn't realize I have to have it match me, right? So I bought the ginseng, I cooked it up, I drank the ginseng, and my skin broke out and all these pimples. had tons of red pimples all over because it was too hot for me. I think I got Korean ginseng or something, which is fabulous, but it's way too hot. And I think I didn't balance it correctly. I did it alone without licorice or other balancing herbs. So I don't think it's a really good idea to just go and like get herbs and take them. I think that if you're interested in that level, talk to one of us about maybe being able to do an online at the school where you can just get a little bit of a consultation on which herbs. I think that's the safest. However, if you're thinking maybe you would grow herbs or buy herbs that are more like foods, the food herbs like orange peel and the jujubes and things that are sort of, not as medicine based or strong, I think that's fine. And I think a great place is just to look at any local herb shops you have in your area. So I don't know where everyone is from, but we've got some in Berkeley and San Francisco. Let me think about Lhasa Karnak is in Berkeley, and they're great. That's where I started. And then if you do it online, I also like Mountain Rose Herbs, and they're up north, I think in Oregon or somewhere. And then if you're really into like the Chinese herbs, I buy all of these herbs that you see here. I buy mine from Springwind in San Leandro, and they have a warehouse there. And I don't know if, I think actually online they do sell to non-practitioners. They have a spot where they just sell the food herbs, so they're this, you know, non-medical, but just, you know, like safe for everybody herbs. And the reason I use Springwind herbs in San Leandro is because since the beginning, what is that now, 30 years, they've always procured the highest quality, and they test for 241 different pesticides. They do chromatography tests to make sure we've got organic, high quality, you know. We don't want anything that is from, you know, an area where there may have been something in the soil. So that's important. So that was part of it. Oh, Rosemary,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
would definitely add that it's probably best to always consult a licensed practitioner when taking herbs. A lot of the herbs that we talked about today um, are a little bit more food or more gentle. And so maybe a little bit more safe to take on your own. But anything outside of that, really would recommend you to consult with someone. Our student clinic is actually offering a special right now, only $10 for telehealth sessions. So if anyone's interested in consulting with someone there too, you can make an appointment on our website.
Oh, I want to do it. That's a great deal.
Yeah, yeah.
That sounds
It is
great.
a good deal.
Can they see you? Can they go ahead and work with you through that vein, or you're not doing it at that location, right? ACTCM.
No, yeah, I'm working at another clinic
But
in
there's
downtown San
great people
Francisco,
there. So
but
I
yeah.
think that's awesome.
Hmm.
And here it is right on the screen. You'll
Yes.
learn so much too. Like if you do that as you become a student and also get into the you know, having treatments yourself, you're going to learn so much. I just think it's a fabulous field. Anybody considering it, there's so many opportunities. There's tons of patients. It just seems to me in my area, I'm in Lafayette, California, um, and you know, I teach in San Francisco and in Berkeley. There's so many people that are interested. And, you know, even now as things have gotten more difficult, I feel like it's actually gotten more and more busy because people realize the herbs can boost their immune system, prevent them from getting sick, and heal a lot of, you know, conditions going around. So it's definitely something that I just feel grateful for, like almost every single day that I do this medicine and that I have access to, you know, all the learning and whatnot. So any other questions for us, Rachel?
Yes, we have only maybe time for one or two questions left, but someone had a specific question about blood stagnation symptoms specific to male, but maybe you could compare like how it shows up differently in a male or female. Um, mm,
What is that the question, or is there some more detail to it?
just, yeah, what are male symptoms of blood
Right. Well,
stagnation?
so in general, like, I guess I don't think about it exactly that way because I feel like we all, you know, kind of have male and female in us. And
Hmm.
it's sort of like, you know, I think about that as like yin and yang and male and female energies together. So it doesn't really matter the gender so much. But what I can say is that in terms of hormones, testosterone is really warming. Okay. So if a person had more testosterone, that's more heat. That heat, if there was some issue with the balance, then the heat tends to dry the blood and make the blood sticky. So like in a more testosterone based person, I think that would show up as varicose veins around their knees and legs. I always check out the legs on people to get a sense of how their blood is doing and how their heart is doing, because the heart being way up here, right? If you think about it, in order to tell how the heart is doing, looking at the toes and the feet and the legs, which is the furthest part away, gives you a sense of the heart's ability to push, right? To push the blood. So when the blood gets sticky because it's a little bit overheated, it tends to show up as varicose veins and varicosities, maybe in hemorrhoids. Um, more of a estrogen, progesterone, more picture, like a female picture, could show up in the blood like tumors and fibroids. So still the tendency for sticky blood, that's what blood stasis is, or blood stagnation. Great question. Thank you. Thank you for that question. What about the other question, Rachel?
Um, some others have asked about, and this is, I'm combining a few questions, but there are some that are like massage therapists who are wondering like how they might refer their clients to an acupuncturist, and also others just how to find a licensed practitioner.
Yeah, that's a good
What,
question. Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you for that question. I think that, you know, when I get requests from people around the country about finding somebody, if I don't know anybody in that area, I usually just do a quick Google search and I'll just put in the city and type up, you know, acupuncturist, and there's a lot. So you can usually find names. Then the work is, okay, well, is that what you're asking? Like, are they going to be a good practitioner, right?
Mhm.
So I try to figure out where they've gone to school. So if you see, for example, they've gone to ACTCM or one of our Bay Area schools, that's a really good sign. ACTCM is, I think, the leader in terms of how long they've been around. So that's going to give you a sense of what kind of education they had. And then there's a bunch of great schools on the East Coast. So generally, when I'm trying to find somebody for, let's say, a family member, I usually narrow it down by their education. And then if they have the doctoral or not, could tell you a little bit more about the depth that they've studied. So I think that's a bonus. And at that point, when I've narrowed it down to one or two or three, I just call them. I see what it's like to leave a message or talk to them on the phone. You know, I have the potential patient call them. I think you should go with your instincts. So that's also going back to that topic of consciousness. And consciousness is connecting to our own internal instincts and intuition. So when you're on the phone with somebody and you feel good about it and you like the voice, right? You like how they sound, you like the pace, it's your instincts clicking in that this works for me, it's healing for me. But if you talk to them on the phone and it doesn't seem quite right to you, I think that's really important to connect to those instincts too, and that level of consciousness. I mean, I really think instincts are super healing, and our medicine tries to get people in touch with that. And so speaking of consciousness, we can take maybe one more question, but then I wanted to talk about consciousness in terms of meditation, if you like. But I do see some good questions. Rachel?
Yeah, there was one last question. Something that's probably been on a lot of our minds is COVID,
Mm.
you know, keeping our immune systems up. Do you have any advice or sort of like guidance around how TCM can help with us during this time? Um,
That's a great question. Yeah, everybody's asking that question. It's such an
yeah.
important question. So I do have advice on that. And the first thing I'll say is that, um, you know, Chinese medicine has been treating viruses, especially coronaviruses, for a very long time. This is not our first coronavirus to go around. In fact, when I was working in the Kaiser emergency room, that's when SARS-2 was going around. That's another coronavirus. And it's amazing the type of herbal medicine. I think the herbal medicine is some of the most powerful to prevent viruses, including coronaviruses, including COVID-19, to treat. The ways of treating coronavirus with herbal medicine, with Chinese herbal medicine, is just outstandingly detailed. It's incredible. As a sort of unified team throughout the world, in China and Asia and the United States, we're working on compiling all the whole possible array of formulas that prevent and treat viruses, and specifically coronavirus. And it's amazing the detail, the level of detail for every little tiny symptom, and how successful. One of the things I had learned is that, and also it's part of why the rates are so low in Asia, is that their healthcare workers are all required to take Chinese herbs to prevent getting coronavirus. So I can't just say there's like a magic one single herb that will do it. It's very, very specific to the person, to the constitution, right? Deficiency, excess, metal, water, wood, fire, all of that. So there's a lot of different versions for different people. That's why I think it's best to do the consult. But the basics are, in order to not get it, for example, like for sure the masks and also being careful about what we touch and cleanliness, but then as well in terms of our internal environment, we don't want dampness. Okay, so coronavirus starts as a damp, cold pathogen, right? So when we first started learning about it, it was last January, and it was a very wet and rainy time and cold time, and that's when the virus thrives. So make sure to keep yourself warm, right? Feet warm, hands warm, ears warm, head when you go out. Don't let cold wind blow in you. All of that coldness lowers our immunity. Then if you come in contact with it, you're more susceptible. If you keep yourself really warm all the way from the feet down, you should make sure that you're well covered, and even with herbs, internally warm. Like, so for me personally, what that means is I'm drinking a lot of ginger and cinnamon tea. Like, I just want to keep myself constantly at a really good temperature and not let myself drop in temperature. And then we have an array of very specific formulas that can prevent it. Like, that can't, if you come in contact with it and it starts sort of exposure, it can wipe that out. They're antivirals, but they're herbs. So that's I think, going back to what Dr. Rachel mentioned, is just working with somebody who has that knowledge. So let's see.
Yeah.
How are we doing?
Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. But I want to thank Dr. Lana again for sharing her knowledge and really giving us a little glimpse into what Chinese medicine has to offer. If anybody wants to learn more, we mentioned earlier, we encourage you to make an appointment at our student clinic, meet one of the practitioners there, you could do online or in-person visits. And also, if anyone who's interested in learning more, excuse me, about our master's or doctorate programs, you can contact our ACTCM admissions team. There is an upcoming information session on December 7th at 5 to 6, and you can register online for that as well. After this presentation is done, a recording will be sent to all of you. And if there are any questions that you weren't able to get answered today, I encourage you to follow up with us, and we will try our best to get back to you. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Yes.
Yeah. Stay healthy.